What up, YouTube? Judges and me back at y'all with another video. We are back and we'll be looking at the worst 2025 for fighters, starting from the flyweight division, going up to the heavyweight division. Firstly, Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby. He kicked the year off in March in Mexico, I believe, with just a mid-performance against Steve Erceg. And since then, Erceg fought Ode Osborne and just had a mid-performance against him. Moreno just stood at distance for fucking 13 minutes of this fight and just did nothing. Didn't throw any strikes, just fainted, doing his little retarded Mexican stance. And it wasn't a good start. He didn't improve his stock. He didn't really do anything in this fight. He won, but not impressively. It was just whatever. And then recently, in December at UFC 323, he got finished by Tatsuro Taira in a fight where the first round, nothing happened. He held a 50-50 position. And then in the second round, he just got his head beaten in. So he's sort of directionless leading into 2026, which brings me to my third point. What does he do? He has Asu Almabayev in front of him, which at this point, Almabayev could beat him. Who's Almabayev lost to? Manel Cap, who is the #1 contender? Again, what does Moreno do at this stage of his career? And let's go on. The Bantamweight division. Sugar Sean O'Malley. He got an immediate rematch against Merab halfway through the year. And it just had no hype. A lot of people calling it completely undeserved. I sort of thought it was deserved because who else was there in the division? Merab's activity was insane during this time. And if he was just going to keep fighting every few months, what was the point in not doing this? The first fight was reasonably competitive. It was boring, but you could argue O'Malley... You could make the argument O'Malley won 3 rounds, but it's just whatever. And then the fight came around and he got steamrolled and finished in the 3rd round, I believe. Merab's only got 2 finishes in the UFC, and this is one of them. So it's it's a shame for O'Malley because this was prime Merab. This was Merab's best performance, and we get to the end of the year and Merab's no longer the champ. So it is what it is. But however, he still has a championship future. With Petr Yan being champion, you look at the division, a rematch between Petr Yan and Merab seems likely. You have Umar fighting Figgy, and then you have O'Malley fighting Song Yadong. So I think both of those guys could end up getting a title shot this year. And I think Sean O'Malley is the hardest matchup for Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan would win a rematch against Merab. I think he'd beat Umar. I think Umar's a good matchup for him. I think that Umar offers nothing on the feet for him. The wrestling he could mix in, but I didn't see him taking down Petr Yan. And if he does, Petr Yan's going to get right back up. But O'Malley's striking is the hardest thing, I think, for Petr Yan in that division. Anyways, featherweight division, we got Brian Ortega. His fight with Aljamain Sterling, it was 5 rounds, and it was just horrible. Brian Ortega had no moments. He had nothing to offer. Aljo on the feet. Aljo just jabbed him and body kicked him for 25 minutes. And it was just not good. He had he laid on his back and threatened him with a guard. That's the most he did. And now he's going up to 55 to fight Moicano in March. And it's a somewhat winnable matchup for him, I guess. But if he beats Moicano, who else does he fight? I mean, you look at, and that's the third point. Look at the lightweight division. Who else do you see Ortega beating? Gamrot, maybe. But again, I think Gamrot would have a similar, but just more effective performance than Aljo did. Because Gamrot's just a sort of a bigger version of Aljo, just with no finishing capability. So and that's if he beats Moicano. I don't think he's going to beat Moicano. At featherweight, he can't seem to make weight. Even though there was a thing where he did a practice run a few months after the Aljo fight and made weight. But still, he's in a tricky spot. And then we got Dan Hooker. He pulled out of his fight with Justin Gaethje in March. Gaethje would go on a fight for Zeev and win. And then he just got dominated by Arman in November. He got beaten up. He got taken down. He offered a couple submission, a couple guillotine attempts. But it was for nothing because Arman ran through him. And he's lost his momentum. He beat Gamrot in August of last year in a good performance. Gamrot is pretty good, and it was until the Charles fight was seen as one of the best contenders in the division. He was a pick'em going into the Charles fight, so it's like he's gone to a point where he's beaten a top guy, and then he had a Gaethje lined up in front of him, which is a somewhat winnable matchup. He pulls out, he gets injured, and then he has to fight Arman Tsarukyan, the toughest matchup in the division, and he got beaten. Next up, perhaps the biggest year, or the worst year in the UFC for a particular fighter, Leon Edwards. He started the year as the #1 ranked welterweight and a top 10 pound for pound fighter, which is crazy. He was above Volk and Holloway at the start of the year. He was above Pantoja. Like, this guy at the start of the year was still seen as a top guy in the UFC, and fast forward nowadays, he's barely holding on to the top 10 in his own weight class. That's in a year. He got dominated by Sean Brady, and then he got knocked out by Carlos Pratis. And we've seen Brady get beaten by Morales, and he's slipped down the rankings. And his best win is against Usman, the rank 8 guy. And then he has no other wins. Or he has Colby Covington in the top 15, but that's it. And he's still very skilled. Don't get it twisted. I still think Leon Edwards is a solid, super good fighter. He made it competitive in the first round against Pratis before the knockout. And his striking's good, his wrestling's good, but it's just such a tough division. And that's what it is. But then you gotta ask, who is next? Like, Masvidal, we've seen this fight be talked about in years prior. Maybe the White House card wouldn't be a bad time to do it, but it's a tough spot for Leon. There seems to be no way to get back to the belt. He's aging. I believe he's 35, so it's tricky. Moving on, middleweight division, Israel Adesanya. You could have went maybe with Robert Whittaker, but Whittaker got dominated by Chimaev last year in October. So I don't think he lost as much stock as Adesanya did, because he came in this year coming off a competitive fight with Dricus. And then he got knocked out at the start of this year by another contender, which I think like dramatically decrease your stock from having a scrap with the champ to getting knocked out pretty quickly by another contender. And then he just did nothing for the rest of the year. He's doing his YouTube thing with a bunch of guys sitting on a couch with Robert Whittaker and MVP, or doing whatever he's doing. And he's not getting in the octagon. He's not proving that he's still one of the best guys in the world. And the thing about the middleweight division, similar to the welterweight division, there's a lot of tough matchups, even for these skilled guys. You look at the division, who does Izzy fight? Paulo Costa was a guy, but then he got matched up with Bruno Ferreira, and then he pulled out of that fight. So who is there for Adesanya to fight? Caio Borralho? He's fighting Reinier Derrida. So who does Izzy fight? Yeah, it sort of leaves him with matchups that aren't favorable. You look at MVP. Like, if anyone fights MVP and doesn't take him down, they're toast. He's not going to fight Whittaker because they're boys now. So who the hell does Izzy fight? Next up, the light heavyweight division, Jamal Hill. He came into the year with a loss to Alex Pereira, which I thought was somewhat excusable. There was the nut shot, and then Pereira was able to close distance. I thought it was a reasonable enough excuse to still be in high standings in the division. But then he got finished by Yuri and then outclassed by Khalil completely, which I think slows down his momentum a lot. He went from a guy that was the champion that lost his rematch, or lost, I guess you could say, his rematch because he got injured. And then he just got finished by Yuri, out-toughened by him, and then he just got out-techniqued by Khalil. And it's a shame because I actually like Jamal Hill. He's entertaining, he talks shit, and now he's injured until at least the first half of 2026. Or maybe even the end of 2026, the reports are saying. So what does he do now? He's ranked at the 7 or 6 maybe. Fuck you. Anyway, he's ranked at those two numbers, and it's tough. because what does he do now? Maybe like Robert Whittaker, since Whittaker's moving up to light heavyweight, but yeah, he's lost the top guys in the division. It's just not looking good. And now the final one, heavyweight, Tom Aspinall. Now you could say Aspinall didn't lose this year, he didn't do whatever, but I think he lost the most stock. He came in the year scaring John Jones, the greatest fighter of all time, into retirement, which is insane. The people looked at this guy as an absolute phenom, a guy that would knock everyone out in the first round. And since he wasn't able to do that to Ciryl Gane, a guy that the last two heavyweight champions in John Jones and Ngannou have beaten, and Jones ran through him, so it just shows if he wasn't able to get through Gane with some doubts, even though there was the eye poke, he didn't lose. But the first round was very competitive. Most people thought Gane was winning up to that point, so it paints a different picture of Aspinall that we're used to seeing, a guy that runs through everyone, had a very tricky first round. And he is injured for the first part of 2026. He's got the eye. I think he's doing an operation on it, so that leaves the heavyweight division open. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to have an interim belt, Ciryl Gane versus Alex Pereira. And the winner of that fight, I can see either of those dudes winning. With that momentum coming off a big win against either one of each other, I think Tom Aspinall, especially after another long layoff, he's in trouble, I believe. But anyway, that was the worst year, the worst 2025 for each fighter in each weight class. There have been some pretty bad ones, like Leon Edwards. And then there's been some not so bad ones like O'Malley. But all in all, this is what I think. Like, subscribe, do all that shit, and I'll catch y'all in a bit.